Right, so this week's episode of the Blunders just had to be about the South African government budget speech yesterday. You know, the funding and expenditure of the state. That is the real deal. This is no laughing matter. You know, ideology, politics, everyone has an opinion. Like everyone has an asshole. But talk is cheap. When the finance minister stands up in front of our elected members of parliament and explains how he plans to collect our money in taxes and dish it out on various social projects, that's what really counts. That's when you see who calls the shots. That's how you see where the balance point is in our society. Now look, the initial reaction, widespread enthusiasm from elites like me, because why? No new taxes! Yes, beforehand, you know, like last week, some batshit crazy people were making some dire suggestions. Like Cape Town fund manager Magda Wierzicka, that's her in the picture. She called for a permanent 2% hike in VAT, 4% once-off tax on retirement savings, and a 5% once-off tax on income. Is she mad? Completely nuts? Once off. When did that ever work with greedy politicians? Listen, I'm old enough to remember the introduction of general sales tax, GST, in South Africa back in 1978. It was supposed to be temporary too, and the original rate, 4%. GST, of course, evolved to become value-added tax, VAT. And now that rate's 15%, and it's not going away, ever. Magda, really. Okay, so the initial response is good. Because another thing, there's no mention in this speech about that bullshit, unaffordable, single-payer national health scheme that the ANC keeps on dreaming about. Wet dreaming about. Look, they did throw a few million rands at the policy department working on it, but otherwise nothing. And of course, there's still a giant allocation in the public hospital vote in the existing budget, the one that's still a big mess. But we're still happy. There you go, Tito. There you go. There you go, Tito. There you go. Now wait, it's a day later, and on closer examination, the enthusiasm levels are starting to wane a bit. Oh, hang on a bit. Hang on. Thanks, mate. Okay, good. South Africa, gotta love it. Hold on. Can't keep the people waiting. A day later, the enthusiasm levels are starting to wane. Why? Because this budget still has the massive bailouts of state-owned enterprises going on. No progress in managing them any better. As Anton Eberhardt pointed out, Eskom received no fiscal support from 1923 to 2008. Not one single bean. And then in the last decade, handouts of 83 billion rands. This year, 49. Next 3 years, 112 billion rands. And don't even get me started on SAA. And then there is the matter of South Africa's rapidly rising debt to GDP trajectory. Take a look at the chart over my shoulder. The pink line was from the projection from last year in October. Sorry there. The yellow line, the new forecast. That's not good. Debt to GDP heading up over 70%. In the words of the great Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, to infinity and beyond. The budget deficit is projected to be like 6.8% of GDP for the next year, and presumably for the rest of time. That is a huge deficit, the kind of thing you would normally only expect to see in a real crisis, like a financial crisis. This means as a nation we're spending about 370 billion rands more than we collect in taxes every year. Not good at all. Keep in mind that this budget also assumes that the government negotiators will somehow miraculously chop off 160 billion rands worth of the public sector wage bill. Ferial Haffajee has pointed out that COSATU's public service unions, SADTU, the teachers, NAHAWU, the Health and Allied Workers Union, are going batshit crazy right now. They're planning an all-out war. They're going to shut down the state, they say. They're hopping mad. Because these union members and their firebrand commie leaders say that the real government overspending is because of the state capture of government bosses. Too many blue car brigades. Also, they say that all of their members, all of them, overworked, underpaid. I suppose they would say that. Working hard, yeah? Working hard. So when the fight gets real and the chips are down, will ex-trade union boss, now President Cyril Ramaphosa, really hold the line on those cuts? Because those 1.3 million public sector workers in South Africa, I would guess, that maybe 1.299 million of them are loyal ANC voters. So how's this going to work, eh? Keep in mind too, the Treasury makes these generous forecasts about GDP growth. Next year 1.6, next year 2.7. Never credible. They always seem to overestimate the GDP growth. So the ratings agencies are out today expressing their total disgust and disappointment. The rand has slipped to 15.35 to the US dollar. Fitch, the ratings agency whose name rhymes with bitch, has basically said, well, look, there's a severe deterioration, challenges, blah, blah, blah. They said that the moderation in public sector wages might not materialize. Indeed, no shit, Sherlock. I'm guessing that Moody's is going to follow suit. So we're heading for the junkyard, baby. And finally, and most laughably, the budget speech included news of the establishment of a South African sovereign wealth fund. Surely to have a wealth fund, you need to have some wealth to save, not just galloping debts. I mean, this is like an insolvent, delinquent, absentee parent who's in arrears on their maintenance payments to his kids, declaring that his intention is now to establish a savings funds for their future university fees. It's just political theatre. Get out of here. Get out of here for real.